cues. Okay, there we go. And we are going live. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. All right. Yay. Liz is joining us.
Liz is here.
I'm going to go ahead and open up the Facebook page really quick. So that way, if anyone has questions, you can mark them in the comments. And then also, if anyone's watching, I'm going to go ahead and plug in the link and the password to join us. Liz, when you came in, did it ask you for a password?
Yes, it did. It asked me for, yeah, so just have to capitalize it.
Okay, I will include the details. Brian's leaving. He's like, you're on your...
I'm experimenting with lighting. It doesn't seem to matter.
My lighting in this room is horrible.
Isn't there a thing we can... Somebody's figured out what... Liz, you look good. You have good lighting.
I have a window in front of me.
Oh, that's what it is. You
got a window.
Flip everything around.
Yeah, you just got to turn around, Brian.
It'd be on my lap. That'd be even worse.
Okay. All right. The connection link for live Zoom and password and whatnot are in the comments. So if you're watching us, go ahead and click there and join. My name's Tanisha. I'm with Brick by Rick Real Estate. We have Liz here. Liz, what region are you from?
I am South Valley, which is the southern portion of Utah County. Provo, below Springville, Mapleton, Spanish Fork, Payson, Elk Ridge, Woodland Hills.
Perfect. And then, of course, we've got Brian here. He's with Security National. Each quarter, we rotate through 3 different topics. And so that makes for a monthly market analysis review. So we're in January, the first of a brand new year. I will say I am about a week and a half late of my anniversary. So last year around this time over Christmas, I had COVID. And guess who has COVID again? Me. So here we are, round 2 and a new year, but that's totally fine. We're going into forecasting. So we're going to go ahead and forecast expectations of things, what we're looking at for the new year. We've got Sydney joining us. Sydney, once your mic comes on, tell us what region you're from. And then if anyone else joins, oh, Sandra's here too. Sandra's in Daybreak. Sydney, remind me where you're at.
Hey guys, I'm in Bannerful East.
Perfect. Okay. So Brian, I will go ahead and I will make you the host. So that way you can share your screen and all the things. And what's really awesome about having so much representation from different parts everywhere, we can kind of each speak to what we're seeing in our areas, what we forecast will happen kind of in the next couple of months. And as we go through this, if you know of anything that's uniquely different about your area, please unmute yourself, tell us about it, and we'll go one step at a time from there.
Very good. Do I reclaim host? No.
Yeah. Should I even have to reclaim? I passed.
I swear this thing changes every time we do this.
Sabotage.
Keep you on your toes.
There you go. Here we go. Is it working now?
Yes, we got it.
Okay. All right. Well, today we're talking about forecasting, and a lot of people, when you say forecasting, they think about reading a crystal ball and making guesses, And one thing we do know about predicting the future is we're always wrong, right? Although last year we weren't too bad. We were kind of right on some things. But the whole point of forecasting is to take the home buying process, at least in what we're talking about today, is to take the process of buying a home, which has a lot of factors involved. I mean, buying a home is not just the numbers. It's, because anything, you have a lot of numbers you can measure. For example, take Bluffdale, where you are, Tanisha. How long does it take you to get to the freeway? It's like, what, 5 minutes, 4 minutes to the freeway?
Yeah, we're real close.
That's quantified. And if you're in Harriman, maybe, or in Elk Ridge, it takes you
20 minutes.
Yeah, what, 8 minutes, 18 minutes, 22 minutes, whatever, to get to the freeway. Those are quantifiable things, but there's a lot of things about home buying, of course, as we all know, that is subjective, meaning I like this house better. You say, why? I don't know. It's just got the feel, right?
It has a beautiful view. It's in the mountains.
Right. Yeah, and with something we can't assign a number to, right? But part of the decision in buying a home are the numbers. And so people ask me all the time, gosh, I think I should wait. I know home prices have really gone up lately. Maybe I should wait until they go back down again. And that may be, who knows? But what we want to do is be able to take some forecasting tools that we have at our disposal and make educated decisions based on the subjective, I like the mountains, I like the view, and also really quantify it to what would happen if I buy now. Is it best to buy in 6 months, maybe a year? And those we can use these tools to pretty help us out. So let's first talk about, I get this again, another question we get all the time. You guys all get it too, which is what's going on with interest rates? And I usually interest rates on a mortgage are very dependent. They move all, there's a large range of them. And it depends a lot on type of loan, how much down payment, what your credit score, and all these different things. But if you want to really have an objective look at what trends are doing, what rates are doing, as far as a trend goes, and a historical trend, this is a Freddie Mac. This is a government-sponsored enterprise, what it's called. And they're the ones that buy a lot of these mortgages. And so they've been putting out this survey of mortgage companies nationwide on basically the same type of transaction. And they have a 15-year, I've shut those off. I want to focus on the 30-year loan. But if you look back in history, and this is a 1-year graph. So right now, this tells us that the average rate last week, and they come out every Thursday, I think it is, and as of the 30th, it is 3.11%. A plain Jane vanilla 30-year loan, same type of loan every time they do the survey. As you can see here, we're at 3.11. I will tell you, since last Thursday, rates have gone up. Okay. The main issue with interest rates always is inflation. That's the big one. During COVID, Tanicia's COVID, double COVID, I might add.
Yay, round two.
Round two. Now you're going to be a super, what do you call it? A super immunity? Double super immunity? Yeah.
Still getting it. That's all I know.
But so what we look at is, all right, rates are at 3.1-ish. They're about 3.2 now. And this is a good place to go, like I said, because if you just Google interest rates, you're going to get all sorts of fantasy rates and all sorts of nonsense out there. But this is an actual standardized survey and gives you an idea. But if you go back here and look over the last 3 years, this is a good way. I'll show you. So you see what rates have done in the last 3 years. So this is January of 2019. We're in the mid fours, and they've just been pretty much, nothing goes in a straight line. We've been coming down. You can see here over the last couple of years, 3 years, jumped up here a little bit, down, down, down. Now, what is significant about this right here, January of 21, and if you go back even into 2020, right here, this is when COVID hit right here. This is when the big March of 2020, and then the rates went up a little bit, and they kind of gone back down. What's happened, what we've seen from the start of COVID in early 2020 through today, is the government and the Federal Reserve has been artificially keeping rates down using pretty dramatic measures. So these rates here, as awesome as they were and are still, they're somewhat artificial. Now what we're seeing is inflation. Everyone's heard about inflation. Everybody sees inflation, and the government is acknowledging, the Federal Reserve, who controls interest rates somewhat through their policies, is acknowledging that inflation is pretty much a longer term thing than they used to say. So with that said, we see rates increasing this year. So right now we're kind of in the low threes. We think it's reasonable to expect rates to go up at least 0.5% this year.
Sure.
But that's still good. Mid three, high threes, yeah.
So with kind of things artificially being influenced, are we at the point where it's like hands off of like, all right, whatever happens, happens? Or do you feel like the trickle up is still kind of like controlled and regulated?
Yeah, it's very regulated. It's controlled and regulated in a way because the Federal Reserve is buying bonds. I won't go to the deep, the geeky stuff of it as much as I would love to, but the Federal Reserve buys mortgage-backed securities, it's bonds, and that drives rates down. They bought about what, 9 trillion, 7 trillion worth so far. So it's just a tremendous, unfathomable numbers. But there's that. Plus, they do set the Fed funds rate and all that. So yes, to answer your question, yes, they're still keeping rates somewhat artificially low, and that's going to change as inflation it keeps cranking around. So we've seen inflation. The official number is what, 7% right now, which is kind of funny. I'm not sure what's up less than 7%, but.
So question for you. One thing that we do and we partner with is on a consistent basis, I think we're doing it monthly, we'll post what the interest rate is and our recommendation, whether you should lock or not lock.
Right.
Do you think once a month is a decent pulse on that? Or do you feel like things change often enough that biweekly would be more valuable?
We can do biweekly maybe. I mean, interest rates, the truth is they change during business hours. I mean, they're moving, they're pretty dramatic. In fact, to give you an idea, today, the interest rates were great this morning. And they started, if I'm looking at the screen right now, they started to get worse because of some unemployment numbers. All we don't, us interest rate people, all we care about is inflation, really. Inflation and overall economic activity nationally. And so right now we're seeing the economy's picking up. Inflation's definitely up. It's the highest in 40 years. And so that's giving people a lot of pause. But the big X factor though, this time around is that tenacious COVID, right? COVID is the big X factor. When the Omicron variant came out, when it was realized instead of having a large caseload, interest rates jumped down a little bit right here. That's the Omicron drop somewhere around there, maybe even down here.
So pretty much anything that sucks, we're like, woo!
Yes, we love bad news. I've been praying for bad news for 28 years, and I'm telling you, it works out pretty well. The only thing we don't like for low interest rates is inflation. Everything else bad. We like unemployment. We love international incidences. Everything bad we like, because this is where the money goes into the bond market for stability and safety. And that's what drives interest rates down.
So you kind of like lightly glossed over how we with inflation are higher than we've ever been in 40 years. Why?
Correct.
Like what? Tell me more about why we care about that.
Well, we care because if you look at from an investor standpoint, because somebody has to buy these bonds. The United States borrows, I don't know what, 29, 30 trillion dollars. That borrowed money is from investors. So if someone buys that bond and they're going to be paid a fixed return. So if I lend Liz money, if I lend her $1,000 and say, you pay me 2% per year, she's going to pay me, 2% per year forever. And as the cost of goods increase, the return I'm getting from Liz that I lent her is being eroded by the fact that the goods in a year from now, when she pays me back, is less than it was today. And so the bond guys, and there are countries that buy these things. China buys a bunch of our debt, and they want a reasonable return. But the higher inflation is, I'm going to say, Liz, I need more money from you now, because if I lend you $1,000 and the same good's going to cost me 7% more in a year, that 2% rate I gave you is no good. I need 5% or 4%. That makes sense. So it follows inflation, because it's a fixed return on that particular.
So if someone's kind of just like turning off their ears of like, okay, I thought I was gonna like hear about the house, how does any of this impact me?
Yes, I'm glad you asked.
Affordable for my house, like bring us back to the circle.
I can dig myself into a geek hole pretty quick, but here's why this matters. Now, inflation, the numbers we're talking about really don't matter really, other than the price of goods, right? And how it affects our interest rates. But here's the inflation a lot of people are aware of, but it's really kind of hard to quantify, because you hear stuff on the news all the time. CNBC and these business channels will talk about, nationwide, the housing market, housing values, home values are up 10%, 15%, 8%, whatever their number is. For real estate, it doesn't really matter what the national averages are. Real estate is extremely localized. Hence, we have specialists in different areas, right? So let me show you as far as I'll segue into this home prices. So if you look at home prices, oh, this thing's blocking me. Let me alone. Leave me alone. Go, go, go. I'm having a technical issue. There we go. Okay. I'm going to show you really quickly. I know I'm not going to geek out too much, but this is a report. It's done by the University of Utah Business School. It's the Kim Gardner Business School. And they put this out every year. It's really helpful. And what it talks about, I'll make it really kind of easy to read here. The two things we look at are housing prices as well as rent prices, because that's all it is really. You're spending money on rent, you're spending money on housing, and the two are related. And here's what I mean. One of the biggest issues in housing, and let's just talk about Utah, our all markets here, right? In Utah, the biggest issue is supply, probably, right? Supply and demand. We have a lot of demand. Here, this graph here, really quick, I'll just show you real fast. You can kind of take a look at this. And by the way, if you want to message us, we'll send you a link. Go away. We'll send you a link to this particular report if you really want to read the whole thing. But this shows the number of households versus the number of additional housing units available, other houses available, right? As you can see, back in 2010, we had a surplus of housing, and now we have a deficit, right? We're underwater. So of all the new households, and that's like when I move out of my parents' house, get married, I'm a new household. Or I don't get married, move out into an apartment, I'm a new household, what that is. So we have, and people moving in from other states and so forth. Those are new, what's called households. And those people need housing. Well, right now we're 74, as of 2020 anyway, we're 7,400 houses short of what we need. So what's that going to do with prices? That's going to drive home prices up. And we've seen that, right? In fact, check this out. I'm trying not to geek out too much. I'm using discipline. Here we go. Okay, so Liz, you know this. What is the appreciation in your market? What was it last year about, right?
Oh, here's your 15% or something.
Yeah, according to this, now there's some county numbers, but I'm looking at these cities. So I don't think I have Elk Ridge in here, but Provo, Utah County, right in the middle, was 32.9% appreciation. Yeah. So that $100,000 house, let's just say to make the math easy, 1 year ago was $100,000. 1 year later, it's $132,000.
Shoot, I was shooting conservative. I shot real conservative.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Now, countywide, it's not that high, but you can see these examples. Layton's kind of like an extreme example. That's up in Sydney's area, kind of. Taylorsville, 30. So, and these are the higher ones. But the question is, what are we going to see next year? This is a hard one. We do know that Utah has tremendous demand still. There's natural demand of just people that don't leave, that grow up and graduate from high school and become their own people, their own households. And then we have, of course, the influx of people from other states. We don't see that really decreasing too much, At the same time, if we use numbers like this, that's an unsustainable number. Your home can't increase a third of its value every year, right? I keep saying that. 1 year I'll be right, but that's kind of an unsustainable number, we believe. So we're thinking,
Brian, if it's not increasing, it could stay where it is, though. So, correct. I think everybody's expecting values to dip, but even if we had zero increase, we would still stay at our current values. Correct?
Correct.
So,
correct.
Yeah, there's. Yeah. I mean,
so if we do this same Facebook Live in a year, and these are all zero, then your house price didn't change, right? And we don't see that happening. And I go back to this. The reason I'm concerned about even making a prediction like that is, or to go, I lost it. Page 9, I think it is. Page 9. Well, anyway, the negative. Oh, here it is. The formations. I lost it. It's gone. Anyway, but we're 7,500 housing units short as of last year. And if you read through this report, which I won't burden you with that, but if you read through it in greater detail, it just says, look, it takes a long time for housing units, new construction, to catch up. It takes a long time because builders can only build so much. There was a news story early last year, I think it was, and they're talking about the available land in Salt Lake County was like a few thousand acres available, you know, for new houses. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So we think housing. What's your big guess, Tanisha? What's your big guess? You got a guess this year?
So,
we're gonna put you on record.
Yeah, please, on record. Let me come in. Two things that I want to say with this past year that we kind of like noticed that were unprecedented with years before. And one was our rental rates for the state of Utah were insane. I think about 6 months ago, KSL for the state gave out statistics for different pockets. And I'll include this article and the one that I'm referencing in the comments below. But we had pockets that ranged from 31% to 60, I think 62% in some areas for with the way that rent has been increasing. And then we're looking at 30% appreciation here, which is nuts, right? Even conservatively at 15 or before that at 7, we're tripling, quadrupling.
That's when you have trillions involved. Yes.
Yes, quadrupling our numbers. So we're talking about also stability and the market and things going back up. So we have so many moving parts. And I can definitely relate to Brian's hesitation of being able to provide security and, hey, this is what things look like for the next couple of months. Especially, I mean, we just learned a couple of months ago that we can have multiple variants and different strings of this virus that are impacting us, right? Who's to say that we couldn't have a third? Or, you know, there's just a lot of unknowns. But to Liz's point, the floor is not going to fall out from underneath us, even if we were to stay exactly where we're at. I mean, honestly, with the amount of equity that I've gained in my home, I could ride that out for 5 years and be completely fine with it, right?
Yeah.
Because we had increased at a rate that was so quick compared to past years. And so I think more than anything, a lot of us are striving for security and striving for normalcy. And we can definitely be able to learn from what we have experienced in the past to where things aren't new anymore, to kind of give us that stability moving forward. So a lot of what we're finding within the real estate market is days on market are going up, which means when a home is listed, it stays listed for a longer period of time. Whereas before it was like 24 hours, was kind of nuts. And so buyers coming into this market, and you guys can kind of tell me if your conversations are similar. My conversations have been, hey, you have time. We're kind of going back to a normal state where we can be able to look at homes and submit offers and have a moment to breathe, right? And so in my opinion, I feel like with where things are trending, they're going to keep climbing up. I mean, that 7,400 number is not going to go away. And if anything, another statistic that happened this year that was new is our retention rate. There were so many people that weren't leaving the state of Utah. Usually we have a percentage that's turnover, and that was at a record high again for people staying in Utah. And then with the tech boom that had happened the previous year, you know, Silicon Slopes, whatever, we had record highs of people wanting to come into the state. So where things are at now, we're kind of waiting for the dust to settle. A lot of companies are restructuring the way that they function. I mean, working from home and people's demands of what they expect from work, and that environment has shifted. You know, is that going to impact the draw to Utah again? So all in all, with the demand, we're still in that deficit. There's still more people who need housing that we can provide. So that's going to continue to drive the market up. That's going to be consistent. That's not going to go away. As we become more normal, right? And there's not as many surprises as to COVID or variant strains or what's happening in our market, we're going to be more comfortable listing our home for sale or purchasing homes or kind of coming out of our shell. Because a lot of people are waiting, saying, hey, look, I'm just going to wait for all of this to blow over and then I'll list, or let's wait till spring. Let's wait until the seasons change. Seasonally right now, things are usually slower this time of year. You have holidays, it's freezing cold. No one wants to move all of their stuff in the snow, right? And so coming into spring and this shift, I feel like we're going to see another little spike and we're going to keep progressing forward. So all in all, long story short, even though I just went long, the bottom is not going to fall out. things are going to keep trending up. Interest rates, I feel like, will impact that some, right? Or for our affordability of what we can do as those go up. But it's just been a crazy year. And I think we're all, I don't know about you with like New Year's resolutions or coming into New Year. I have never been as excited to hit a new year this year. And I feel like a lot of us are feeling that way of, this is my year. Last year was an insane roller coaster for all of us. And so we're all kind of coming in with this vigor and excitement for a new beginning. And I think that will translate in our opportunities and what we see in the market.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. And along with that, I'll just give you a little quick minute on rents. So rental costs, what it costs to rent a townhome, house, apartment, whatever, those have been increasing. And like Tanisha mentioned, they're up pretty decently last year. Here's what's behind that. This is what they call rental vacancy rates. So this is the percentage of available rental units. This can be an apartment, a house, a townhome, whatever. You notice how, if you look at, let's take Salt Lake County. You look down here and it's 4%, 7%, right? Notice as of last year, this is mid 2021, and I've seen some more current numbers that are about the same. They're actually under like zero. It's basically zero, under 2%. Utah County has a 2% vacancy rate. That means for 100 apartments / any units available for rent, only 2.2 of them are available or vacant. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those are being remodeled, that kind of thing. So you really have an almost zero vacancy rate. But what's interesting about rents, though, is a house, as you all seen, a home price can do this, right? They can jump and jump based on somebody making multiple offers, which again, like Tanisha said, is getting better, which is nice. But rents are different. Rental rates are a little more static, because when you rent in a house, for example, or a townhome, you're going to sign probably a 1-year lease, and that lease is going to be fixed for the year. And what we see, so if you I wish I had a graph to show you, but if you look at rental histories, they tend to jump. Like the housing prices will increase, rents will stay stagnant, and they'll jump and jump. And we're seeing these jumps now, especially with these low vacancy rates, where these very few units are available. So it would favor, all else being equal, it favors buying for sure, especially like what Tanisha said, that the market is much more, it's a lot more friendly, let's put it that way. Yeah. You can actually look at a house before you buy it, that type of stuff.
So kind of summarizing things over, based off of what we know now, let's say for like the next 3 months, the next 6 months to the next year, what do you see interest rates looking like if we're forecasting moving forward? I think from a real estate perspective, we're going to see that homes are going to continue to increase in value. That rate of increase is going to be less than it has been in the past. So as far as your affordability and being able to get into a home, the higher the interest rate, the lower your affordability is going to be. The more demand, the higher that price point is going to be. We're going to experience both of those things moving forward. But what would you say on kind of like a dollar value of, okay, if the interest rates were to be at this number within the next 3 months, that would impact your affordability by this number? And I know it's very hard to get.
That's a good question,
because there's so many different factors. And so I want to invite anyone who's watching this to know we have the systems and processes to plug in your exact situation with what your affordability is, what your income is, your debts to income ratio, all of the things, to pinpoint exactly what the story looks like for you. But since we're talking to a general audience, what would you say, Brian, kind of forecasting at that 3 month, 6 month, and 1 year mark that we're kind of coming into this new year looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, generally speaking, if we increase, let's say I really think we're going to be probably like mid high 3% range in the next 6 months or so. I just don't see what's going to stop it unless we have there's again that COVID, the big X factor is what happens with COVID. But assuming COVID just kind of does what it does right now, it seems to be, if you increase your interest rate today or your interest rate in 6 months, let's say, is 0.5% higher than it is today, that'll affect your qualifying generally about $30,000, $40,000, something like that.
Okay.
So it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it definitely matters for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I want to open up this question to the group. And if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourselves, I would love to hear what the starting price is for a single family home in your area that you're living in. Just in general, conservatively, if someone wants to buy a single family home, what would you tell them? Hey, to live in this area, you're going to need to spend about X amount.
Two things I wanted to mention before I get into that. And Brian, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that I noticed that the interest rate is directly connected to the affordability and demand. So a lot of times if the interest rate goes up, the demand goes down just a little because, you know, it's less affordable for people. So therefore prices adjust a little. So at some point, the interest rate and the affordability are directly related, and it kind of helps to even that out.
Yes.
Not on a larger scale. I mean, if it's drastic, then of course it can't follow it that much. But when we have small adjustments, then it seems like if interest rates go up a bit, then prices tend to adjust just a bit down.
Yeah, I think you're exactly.
So
I think you're right.
Keeps your affordability at the same place.
If you see a 0.5% rise in interest rates, that's going to, I think if you'll notice it in days on market, you'll see that stretch out just a little bit. But in Utah, on our market here, I don't see it really. It's not going to cause any kind of drop in prices for sure. But you're exactly right. I think it'll temper it a little bit, and it's probably good in
just
some
small
ways.
Adjustments. I mean, if we think about why does the Fed try to keep the interest rate down? To keep it affordable.
Right. So
they've got to be related to some extent.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And ultimately, the Federal Reserve, to what they can, to the amount they can, if low interest rates are pretty much a good thing, unless you're on the other side of the, you're making the interest income on the other side. But they generally favor a low interest rate market until the inflation hits. The lower, if you keep rates down too long, inflation, and that's what they've seen happen. The inflation's gone up. So
as far as the entry level in my immediate area, you've got to be at least 450, 500.
Sydney, Eliza, Sandra, where are you guys at in your area, if you know?
I think it's very similar here, like 4 or 5, depending on the size. But yeah, it's going up.
Yes, I would agree. Mine is the late 300s and early 4.
Okay. I think with our area, for a townhome in general, we're hitting 4. So I mean, for single family, it's going to go up from there. And the reason why I ask is I feel like in the past, I could feel confident within like my time being in real estate, I could find a single family home for someone with a budget around 250 to 300. I don't know if that's the case now. I mean, maybe a condo. And the reason why I want to kind of illustrate this is Brian saying that within the next 6 months or so, with how an interest rate can impact your affordability, could be 30 to 40,000. With these introductory prices going up, I don't know if that is a deal breaker of getting into that first home, right? And kind of having that sense of urgency of if we're at the bottom scale of fighting and competing to get into the housing market in general, I'm sure you guys can agree with me. That's kind of the most aggressive place to be. We have the most offers there. Like if you're in $1 million community or a multi-million-dollar area, your competition is a completely different story than a starter home, right?
Right.
And so the more offers that are on the table, the higher that price point is going to drive. And as that affordability continues to kind of tick up, looking at forecasting at this new year, we know based off of what we've talked about today that things are going to start sliding up. And my question for you is, how much time do you have personally to where that ceiling might start slipping, where this grasp of reality of purchasing a home is turning into, something that might not be possible? I want to kind of just open the floor in general. We're talking about kind of forecasting questions and answers. Does anyone have any questions or any things we want to talk about or address in general with forecasting in the new year?
Tunisia, I agree definitely with what you're saying. I mean, a lot of times people are saying, well, I just want to wait. I want to see it come down a bit. You're going to be waiting a long time. I don't think it's coming down.
Yeah. I think too, also along with what Liz is saying, she's 100% right. I think I think right now, if you're thinking about it, take some action. Let's figure out if now's a good time to buy. And I'll tell you why. Right now we're in the winter. It's freezing, right? Right, and rates are still awesome, and they haven't done that jump. They're creeping up. But they haven't really done anything yet. But I think they're going to go up. But I think when spring comes, when things start to thaw out, because I know several people who are waiting to put their homes on the market until spring. Mm-hmm. You know, and that, I think you're going to see a lot of activity, and I think the days on market is going to shrink in the spring.
I agree. I think as a seller waiting till spring, you're fine. As a buyer, you kind of have like a gap of opportunity. I'm really close with new construction. We do a lot of bids on land and property and whatnot. In the past 2 months, we have been able to secure contracts at list price. And if we're bidding over, do you know how much we bid? Let me ask you guys a question. If you were to do a bid on a new construction lot 6 months ago, how much would you bid over? Just throw out a number.
10%.
15,000.
15,000. 20,000. I had clients bidding $50,000 over, right? Normal, completely normal. Okay, guess how much our bid was over list price last month?
$0.
$100.
Wow.
It's the principle.
Well, I just closed one 5,000 under list price, so.
There you go. This is a really unique opportunity to where we just came from a crazy uncertainty time. We have this kind of like gap in the market of, okay, the floor is not falling out, but the demand is way lower as far as people actively buying, because a lot of them just got burned from this crazy market, right? So if you're looking to buy, I would say this is your window. Come springtime, a lot of these people who have been waiting to list their homes are going to list. A lot of these people who have been uncertain are going to be ready to buy. It's going to be a completely different market, and I'm excited to talk about it 3 months from now. But for now, I would say if you're a buyer, there's no time like the present. If you're a seller, you're still in a position to where demand is on your side, but we're still kind of in this crazy uncertain spot. So I would say, waiting till spring isn't going to hurt you. If you have the ability to, great. But at the same time, you need to make decisions based off of what's best for your family, your circumstance. And like Brian had said at the very beginning, there's a lot of factors that aren't monetary, that aren't tied to a number or a statistic that are going to be a driving force. And so whatever's going to be right for you is the right answer to pursue. But at the end of the day, what our goal is, and the reason why we want to have these types of conversations, is so that you can have an educated decision. You can know what to put in the pros and cons column. You can lay out, we have interest rate, we have rentability, we have affordability, we have all of these different factors. And so jumping into next month, we're going to be talking about affordability. We'll go into renting versus owning, the different benefits, and then we'll cycle back here affordability next quarter. So I have appreciated all of you guys taking your time to join us. Does anyone else have any other questions, comments, or anything else that they want to bring up? And also just know, please contact us after. We have region leaders here from all over the state of Utah that are happy to help. Brian has access to all of the numbers to be able to lay out a roadmap that's unique to you. And we're all here to just support you and help you make that dream happen.
Sounds good.
Yes, thank you, Brian and Tunisia. I know that when you say new builds too, I've found several people that are having new builds. By the time the house is built, they've already got a lot of equity.
Oh yeah. And that won't change. And that, from what I've seen, is going to continue to happen. So that's awesome.
I have one question for Brian before we end.
Yeah.
Brian, I work with quite a few military. The percentages, do those change drastically with the VA loans or anything that you can see with the rates?
Yes, they do. They move pretty much the same as the non-government loans, they call it, the conventional loans. Yeah, they're all kind of the same market, really, where these bonds are sold. So yeah, they'll go up and down with everything. Yeah, with the rest of the market. Yeah.
Is there a huge difference though? So when rates are high, I know there's a little bit of difference though. I just want to know if there's like a huge difference or if it's like a 1% difference.
Yeah, as far as the actual rate, you know, conventional versus VA and all that. Yeah, not really. It depends. It's sometimes it's government loans are generally in the past have had better interest rates, lower interest rates because they're 100%, well, not 100%, but they're guaranteed by the government, right? What's happened over the last 5, 6, 7 years, well, even the last couple of years, is the government, the federal government has essentially given the same, unofficially given the same guarantee to conventional loans. So that's made them more valuable to bondholders, to the lenders, people. And so they're kind of getting the margin between VA and conventional has really narrowed. It's not as it used to be 1% or even more of that back in the old days. But now everything's, in fact, on this last round of COVID, when the government announced they required lenders to give those forbearances, you know, where you could stop making payments for 6 months, that was kind of a government thing. And it gave the bond market pause to realize, gosh, so the federal government's going to back up our mortgages too. This is great, you know? And so you see these rates just kind of crunch down. Yeah. But they will move in the same direction for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll go back, or that separation will slowly start to grade or get wider in the future.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I mean, when the government giveth, it never taketh away, you know? So once the government offers these, they call it an implicit guarantee, but it's kind of turned over into almost a guarantee over the years, you know?
You think?
Well, and I think we have to remember with the VA, there's these other perks that are, you know, other factors that.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of times it's worth it anyway to do a
VA. VA is the greatest loan in the world. I mean, if you're a veteran and you got your entitlement for a vet, VA loans are fantastic. There are very few cases where an eligible veteran doesn't go VA. I mean, it's just a great loan. It really is.
I believe we got our first house in 2008 and we had a 4% loan.
Yeah.
And then it went down from there because we refinanced 3 years later. So.
Yeah. VA is pretty good.
Yeah. Speaking of refinance and kind of transitioning out, if you own a home and you have not refinanced, contact one of us, get a good idea of what your house is worth, see what your interest rate is. Keeping tabs on this. Whenever I work with our clients, a lot of times we'll do our agency agreements for a calendar year, and then we'll go to renew those every single year. And the reason why is we never stop working. And we want to be able to keep a close eye out on, okay, now that you own a home, what is the interest rate? You know, is it higher or lower than what it is now? What options do you have? If we're looking at secondary properties or growing your investment portfolio, could you do a HELOC or a line of credit to be able, or cash out to pull equity to be able to roll it into a new one? So you have so many options. Just because you own a home doesn't mean that your opportunities stop. You have multiple that you can kind of get creative with in growing, and that's kind of a completely separate conversation. But at the end of the day, we're here for you. We're happy to help. Thanks, Brian, for taking the time. And I appreciate all of you guys. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll go ahead and reference this article as well as the one on rental rates that KSL had done. And if there's anything else we can do, just feel free to reach out.
Awesome.
Have a great day.
Very good. Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.